Anaheim Halloween Festival, Calliopes and Kangaroo Courts. The first Anaheim Halloween Festival, given by the Anaheim Merchants and Manufacturers Association, which later became the Anaheim Chamber of Commerce, took place on Thursday, October 30th, 1924. Just a couple of weeks earlier, on October 10th, Walter Johnson led the Washington Senators to the World Series by pitching 4 scoreless relief innings in the 7th and deciding game. If you haven't heard of Walter Johnson, he's a legendary pitcher and one of the first 5 players to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Walter had lived in Olinda and gone to Fullerton High School, playing baseball for local teams including the Anaheim Oil Wells. The Anaheim Elks called on Walter Johnson and some other Major League players to take part in an exhibition game at the Brea Bowl on Halloween, and he and Babe Ruth were persuaded to lead the parade the night before the game. The power plant whistle sounded at 7 p.m., signifying the opening of the festival and the Grand Parade, also referred to over the years as the Pageant Parade or Great Parade. The first festival also included a window display contest and street dance. Businesses along Center Street decorated their windows for the contest, lampposts were adorned with corn stalks, and lighted pasteboard pumpkins were strung along the street. Thousands attended the festival, which carried on until midnight. It was such a success that it was decided that same night to make the festival an annual event. For the first 10 years, the festival continued with the window display contest, street dance, and costume contest on Center Street. During that time, the parade expanded to 2 miles with many more floats and bands. A Charleston contest was added in 1925, but for those who did not like to dance, there was a vaudeville show on Center Street. In 1928, the vaudeville moved to the Greek Theater in City Park, which is now called Pearson Park. This was an annual event until 1947, when vaudeville became a big part of the costume breakfast. The first night football game in the area also took place after the parade. The Anaheim High School Lightweights defeated the Downey Midgets 31-0. They painted the ball white and called it the Ghost Ball. Portions of the game and parade were filmed by Fox Film and shown at the California Theater the following night. The earliest photo I could find of the festival is this 1927 picture of Stroop Barnes, the second-place winner of the window display contest, for its depiction of a country crossroads store. Stroop Barnes had won first place for its windows in 1925 and 1926, with recreations of an old-fashioned kitchen and an old-fashioned living room, respectively. Nostalgia seemed the main theme for most of the 1920s, with skeletons and witches barely beginning to appear in windows in the 1930s. In fact, it's funny to read a 1935 newspaper article explaining that Morgenthaler's window was ruled out of the contest for lack of the Halloween motif. The display showed Ichabod Crane galloping through a graveyard pursued by the Headless Horseman. For the first time, festival ads were placed in the newspaper on the 10th anniversary of the annual event. The 1930s brought many additions to the festival. Some were short-lived, like the 1938 Jitterbug Contest, Halloween opera hats and derbies sold in 1938 and 39, a German street band in 1934 and 35, costume ball from 1936 to 1940, and a horse show from 1934 to 39, and again in 1946 and 47. The horse show included contests, races, trick horses, and a polo game. Western movie stars such as Leo Carrillo and Monty Montana, who came for the horse show, were also rounded up to ride in the parade. Over the years, quite a few such celebrities served as Grand Marshal. Equestrian riders have always been a big part of the parade. Other events that started in the 1930s became an integral part of the festival for decades to come. Often, merchants closed businesses and schools closed at noon so that everyone could attend the festivities. In 1934, the festival expanded to an all-day and sometimes multiple-day affair. 1934 was also the year that the Kangaroo Court began. It was a 2-day program, and those not dressed in costume were picked up by Keystone cops in their patrol wagon and brought before a Kangaroo Court where they were fined or penalized for evading the spirit of Halloween. The Kangaroo Court was a part of the festival well into the 1980s. It looks like Anaheim was celebrating the city's German roots in the second picture on this slide. In 1935 introduced the Whiskerino Contest, where men were awarded prizes for the longest beard, as well as other categories, such as the reddest and most unsanitary. The first year this event took place, Captain Marcus Andrade of the Anaheim Police Department was crowned King of the Whiskerinos. In 1936, men could be brought before the Kangaroo court for lack of whiskers, as well as no costume, but could buy a whisker exemption card for $1. It worked like a get-out-of-jail-free card for men not sporting a beard. Whiskerino winners were offered free shaves in addition to prizes. In 1946, men had to join either the Smooth Puss or Whiskerino clubs in order to avoid arrest. Over the years, judges looked for other types of beards, such as beards dyed different colors, the most well-groomed beard, or even beards of the United States presidents. By 1960, the event was simply called the Beard Contest. The contest seemed to have disappeared completely after 1960 until resurfacing again in 1975 through 1977 as the Brother of the Brush Contest. In 1937, M.L. Teast & Company contracted a Calliope for the parade, which was also used as a wake-up call for Anaheimers attending the first costume breakfast held in the banquet room of the Marigold Cafe. The Anaheim Gazette described being awakened by the blasting of whistles and piercing music of the Calliope. Personally, I can't imagine waking up to that at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. The costume breakfast was so well attended that the next year it was moved to the lawn of the Elks Club, and a limited number of 300 tickets to the event were sold. The year after that, it was expanded to 500 tickets and moved to City Park. In 1940, when the post office still delivered mail twice a day in Anaheim, services were reduced to only one delivery on the day of the festival so that all postal carriers would be able to attend the breakfast together. Unfortunately, breakfast wasn't a complete success that year, as someone walked away with 36 pieces of silverware. This didn't deter organizers, and the breakfast continued to thrive from 1946 through the 1960s, drawing from 1,000 to over 2,000 costumed and hungry participants. The Calliope alarm clock was a tradition that continued through 1956. A costume contest and show was a big part of the breakfast. Wally Bogue from Disneyland's Golden Horseshoe Revue served as MC of the costume breakfast a few times between 1957 and 1962. For many years, the breakfast was sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. The Anaheim chapter of the Isaac Walton League took over from 1958 to 1962, when they referred to the event as the Buckaroo Breakfast. The Chamber of Commerce sponsored the breakfast again until the Anaheim Rotary Club took the helm in 1970. From 1971 to 1991, breakfast was split into separate breakfasts on 2 different days. The costume contest was held at the first breakfast only. Unfortunately, the attendance at the breakfast dwindled in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The first afternoon Kiddie Parade took place in 1939, but there really wasn't anything about it in the newspaper that year, just a small blurb that said it was one of the best features of the day. This must have been true because it continued on for many years and grew to be quite a big festival event. In the 1940s, district schools often ran a minimum day schedule and participated as groups in the parade. Other than one half-hearted costume breakfast in 1942, The Kiddie Parade is the only event that continued on during World War II. The old Halloween spirit was alive and well again in 1945. The Calliope roused 900 participants for the costume breakfast and stunts. Kangaroo Court was back in session. The kids even got their own vaudeville show following the Kiddies Parade. In 1948, there were 2,000 marchers in the Kiddie Parade. Based on the large selection of wonderful photos taken in the 1950s, I think we can conclude that the Kiddie Parade was a pretty big deal in this era. Some members of the Anaheim Historical Society recreated the flying saucer for the parade in 2012. The youngsters in the photo on the left were depicting the mother colony of German settlers who founded Anaheim. Their sign reads, "In the good old days of Anaheim, German settlers planted vines and made the sweetest tasting wine." In 1960, there was no school on Friday in order for schools to participate in the Kiddie Parade and other events. The parade theme for 1965 was Festival of Sports. What is great about the Anaheim Stadium float is that the stadium did not open until 1966. The boys in the photo must have been excited about the Angels and the new stadium coming to town. In the 1960s, 5,000 to 6,000 kids marched in the parade, representing their school in costume, or were one of the many bands and drill teams that performed along the route. In 1972, festivities were moved to the Saturday before Halloween so that schools would not have to close to allow students to take part in the Kiddie Parade. The Kiddie Parade moniker was deemed a bit old-fashioned by 1973 and was redubbed the Youth Parade. Going through all of the photos, in 1975 and 1976 there were quite a few patriotic floats. In fact, the festival theme during our bicentennial year was Festival 76. Due to declining participation in the Youth Parade, the Anaheim City School District no longer closed to allow children to take part, so the Youth Parade was canceled in 1983. The next and final Youth Parade took place in 1989. New festival traditions were started as late as the mid-1940s. The most memorable of these was the Slick Chick Contest, Kids Window Art, and Halloween buttons. The first buttons in 1947 helped Anaheimers identify themselves as Smooth Puss, Fuzzy Mug, or Slick Chick. Buttons were also used to pin ribbons on the winners of different events. The first Andy Anaheim button came out in 1954. The little wooden nickels in the smile in this photo were given out with the names of different Anaheim businesses on the back. Many of them could be traded for goods like a free hamburger at Carl's Jr. The first queen of the Halloween Festival was crowned at the 1937 costume ball at the Elks Club. But this idea didn't really catch on until the first Slick Chick contest took place 10 years later. The judging of teens and young ladies was based on costumes with one of three themes: Halloween, comic strip, or something typical of Orange County industry. The 1948 Slick Chick winner pictured here was Arlene Anderson from Anaheim High School. One of the first judges was Abe Shore, Director of Makeup at Max Factor. The winner of the contest received a new outfit and the privilege of riding on the Chamber of Commerce float in the parade. By 1951, the Slick Chick Contest took place a week or two ahead of Halloween at a masquerade ball. The winner was crowned at the ball and would appear on radio shows and on the television program Queen for a Day before taking part in the Grand Parade. Starting in 1953, a young beauty was crowned Miss Halloween rather than Slick Chick, but she still reigned in the Grand Parade. In 1956, the contest took place during the costume breakfast rather than a masquerade ball. By 1962, there was no longer a Slick Chick or Miss Halloween contest. Instead, an honored place in the parade was reserved for the winner of the Miss Anaheim contests. The Merchants' Window Display Contest was a huge part of the festival through the 1920s and 30s, until the start of the war. Newspaper articles listed all of the businesses that entered the contest and gave details about all the winning windows and even some honorable mentions. But after 1940, no mention was made of it until a small article in 1955. I'm not sure if the contest still took place at that time or had made way for the Kids' Window Art Contest, which began in 1947. Children attending Anaheim schools were invited to paint store windows in the downtown area with a Halloween motif, and the artwork was judged in 3 different age categories. Organizers had a difficult time getting the word out and having kids sign up that first year, but by 1951, at least 600 participated in the contest. The contest was very popular in the 1950s, and organizers sometimes had a hard time finding enough windows in the downtown area for all of the participants. In 1962, the city instituted a slightly different contest where children entered paintings that were exhibited inside various Anaheim businesses. But in 1968, the festival went back to the window art contest, which took place through 1982. In the mid-1980s, children could enter their masterpieces in a Halloween poster art contest, and they were displayed at the Anaheim Center Mall. In the 1960s through 1980s, there was also a business firms decorating contest, where merchants once again created fantastic window displays or interior themes. Quite a few banks, stores, and other businesses participated in the contest and encouraged employees to dress up. Even city departments who weren't eligible for the contest dressed up or created displays in fun. In 1969, visitors to the Anaheim City Hall had to walk through the jaws of a huge whale in order to enter the building. In 1948, the silver anniversary of the parade, Anaheim hosted the Orange County Fair and combined festivities with the Halloween Festival. The Elks Club took this opportunity to sell tickets for 1,200 parade seats along the route. A film taken during the 1948 event shows a comedy duo, the Merry Mutes, performing at the breakfast. Look closely and you will see a young Dick Van Dyke entertaining the crowd with his partner Phil Erickson. Many celebrities have taken part in the Halloween Festival over the years. Here are just a few of them: Andy Devine, Buddy Hackett, Winnie the Pooh, Nolan Ryan, Buddy Ebsen, Johnny Whitaker, Donald Duck and his voice, Clarence Nash, Jodie Foster, Tommy Lasorda, and Ben Murphy. Unfortunately, photos couldn't be found of many other celebrities such as Babe Ruth, Rod Carew, and Magic Johnson. In the 1960s to early 1980s, the festival once again included an adult costume ball, as it had before World War II. A dance for seniors was added, as well as a teen dance featuring bands like the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and psychedelic group Stack. There was also a pumpkin bowl football contest for junior and senior high school teams. In 1968, other activities were added at the Anaheim Center Mall, such as a pumpkin carving contest and Halloween poster contest. Other short-lived additions to the festivities in later years included a tennis tournament, car show, arts and crafts show, an occasional haunted house, and a 10K run. The one tradition that has survived nearly every year since 1924 is the Grand Parade. And since 1924, vehicles of all kinds have been a big part of the parade. The Anaheim Gazette described the first parade as being floats, autos, decrepit vehicles, bands, drum corps, and foot passengers. All the vehicles were dressed in the sere and yellow of autumn, and all of the hundreds of persons participating costumed, masked, and painted. In 1925, the parade included a decrepit Ford whose rear wheels would occasionally jump several feet into the air, nearly throwing out its passengers. Floats were always a part of the parade. These are some of the earliest floats we have photos of. Stunts were also big in the 1920s. In 1925, Anaheim Creamery received the prize of a box of candy for the best stunt, an overgrown baby girl drinking from a bottle and being toted along by its mother. The most comical girl and boy awards went to a girl in a yama-yama suit and a boy who rode a bike with a dog on his back. California celebrated its gold centennial in 1948, which was a great segue to the first Grand Parade theme of 49ers, or Pageant of Halloween 1949. Some popular themes over the years were American Indians, Arabian Nights, Out of This World, Legends and Fantasies, The Good Old Days. Each parade division could also have its own themes such as holidays, fairy tales, and legends of faith. Excelsior Creamery entered this Ramona Festival float in 1954. The parade theme was Legends and Fantasies, Festivals of the West Division. Also in 1954, Dixie Cup created a float entry, Faith Our Heritage, but it was destroyed by a flash fire on the company's lot where it was being worked on. The fire was caused by an electrical short in one of the float's floodlights. There have been very few incidents during the festival, but a few mishaps did make it into the newspapers. In 1931, a trailer carrying a piano through the parade broke loose and ran into a curb, damaging the piano. In 1933, someone threw a tomato through the windshield of a car riding in the parade, breaking the glass and causing injury to one of the passengers. And in 1947, the driver of the Anaheim Chamber of Commerce float was overcome by carbon monoxide from the exhaust of his truck, which had accumulated under the float coverings. The driver bumped into two parked cars and was taken to the hospital. Every year, local businesses like Kwikset and SQR Store created their own floats and encouraged employees to take part in the festivities. For a few years in the 1950s, Kwikset even held its own Whiskerino Contest. The SQR float here represents the parade theme Halloween in Toyland. The Rocket Witch float was one of the inspirations for the 1953 Halloween Festival theme Out of This World. This was also the first year that the Walt Disney Company was involved in the parade, creating the leading float in the parade, Walt Disney's Fairyland. This was a recreation of 4 popular fairy tales, complete with a fairy tale castle. Another Disney float had Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck riding a roller coaster called Tunnel of Spooks. According to the book 3 Years in Wonderland by Todd James Pierce, Walt's executive assistant on the Disneyland project had come to Anaheim as a parade judge, also meeting with members of the Chamber of Commerce to discuss the project. Many other Orange County cities and even a few from Los Angeles County have entered vehicles, floats, or bands in the parade. Floats shown here are from Fullerton, Huntington Beach, Garden Grove, and Costa Mesa. In 1951, the vaudeville made way for a pre-parade stadium show. Spectators could buy tickets to the show and watch the parade from within the stadium at La Palma Park. Entertainment for the show included such acts as the Mouseketeers and the King family. A fireworks show kicked off the parade for the 50th anniversary of the festival and continued each year at the pre-parade show through 1981. The parade was first televised in 1962 on KHJ-TV Channel 9. KTLA covered the festival event in 1969 and 1970, and KOCE in 1979. The Anaheim Chamber of Commerce sponsored the festival in 1977. At that time, individuals and local businesses and organizations formed the Anaheim Halloween Festival Association and took it upon themselves to keep the festival going. There are a number of photos of cars in the parades in the 1980s, but not many floats. The parade was rained out for the first time ever in 1987. Then in 1991, the Halloween Festival still took place, but the parade was canceled due to city budget trimming. For the next few years, there was very little taking place in Anaheim during Halloween. Anaheim Parks, Recreation, and Community Services put on a Halloween Carnival in 1994, and in 1995, the Anaheim Fall Festival was started by volunteers to revive the tradition in a smaller scale. There was a pancake breakfast sponsored by the Anaheim Host Lions, as well as a carnival and other activities during the day, including a kiddie parade. The Anaheim Fall Festival continues on today, and the parade has really grown the past few years. I'm not sure if the city will ever have hundreds of thousands of spectators line the streets again, but I'm definitely glad that Anaheim has some hardworking volunteers who are keeping up tradition. Make sure to look for the Anaheim Halloween Festival this year, and we're coming up on the 100th year in 2023.